Today's guest, Julius Göllner, founder of ARRtist, a conference in Berlin with more than 400 B2B founders.
It's a lot of effort you need to put in, and maybe at some point it's then self-sustaining, but you also need to invest into it, I guess. So how does this work to build an ecosystem of communities?
Yeah, I mean, I need to say I'm doing this also for the first time, so it's a big learning process for me. So the journey started with I'm helping my portfolio companies, and what I'm doing in my own companies is go to market and sales. And my initial idea was to build a fresh sales conference because tech sales is way different than sales for Volkswagen, stuff like this. And so this was the initial idea, and talked to a couple of people about the idea, like I said before, doing interviews and is there a pain, blah, blah, blah. And then there was the feedback like, yeah, sales is a topic, but we also have a problem with fundraising. And we also would like to exchange about marketing and about product. So we said, okay, instead of building a sales conference, and this was the first idea for like all levels of sales, we just said, okay, we're building a SaaS conference with all functions, but only with a very boutique approach just for high-level decision makers, founders and C-level. And they say, okay, how to bring these people together in the best way? It's like, okay, a digital format. And I was like, digital format difficult for exchange and a Zoom meeting with people. So there was a decision to do a physical meetup. And I was like, okay, the physical meetup, probably we should build a small conference. And said, okay, let's having the idea. And then I was like, okay, I'm not the guy who building a conference for myself for 500 people, not the expert, not the knowledge. By coincidence, my current two co-founders, which are long-term friends, and I was at the first angel in their business, in their last company, they were running a Tough Mudder clone called Xletics. So they did events for 15,000 people 20 times a year, like on the biggest scale. So they knew event, were open for something new. I knew SaaS, no idea about event. We just met together. I pitched the idea. They said like, okay, let's do this on a half-week basis. And then we had like a good team for the pain and for the solution. The solution was a conference. And then we just did outreach. Yeah. So I just said, okay, what's the go-to-market? The go-to-market is probably to have an interesting conference and a summit. We need a good program and a good approach in terms of people can connect. If we have a good program and good speakers, people will buy tickets to come. And if we have people and speakers, then sponsors will probably also join, because then there is an interesting target group for partners. And this is what we did. I just did outreach to 50, 60 people.
Julius and I talked about bootstrapping and how to start SaaS businesses, scale them, and what the difference in bootstrapping versus VC company building is. We also talked about community building and many more. So if you're into B2B SaaS, it's an episode for you.
Then you can build trust, and then you can spend less time communicating and more time just getting shit done.
Then I went home and thought about this sentence.
We basically put it on the table.
Hiring takes time. People are trained.
How to objectively judge certain situations.
It's very, 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 very hard to change things.
That was the learning.
Entrepreneurs with empathy.
To the people side.
Hi Julius, happy that we have the chance now to have a conversation, because I found your appearance on LinkedIn and through your events really interesting. Also your podcast, I also even listen to it sometimes. And now it's great that we have you here on the show. So maybe we can start with a bit of context about yourself.
Happy to do so, Thomas, and thank you very much for the invite. I'm Julius. I'm 39 years old now for a couple of days. I'm based in Berlin. I have 2 kids here, and I'm entrepreneur and investor by heart. If you like to, I can give a little bit background of myself during the last year. So see you nodding. I'm started my career at McKinsey, consulting banks and insurances, but not for a long time. Learned a lot, but also recognized that it's consulting is probably not my passion of life for the long term. Then the 2 founders of Zalando acquired me for a top management position at Zalando, which I did for almost 4 years, managing all non-full price business units at Zalando. So Zalando Lounge, the retail outlets, B2B unit at the board. Did this until the IPO of Zalando. And then 10 years ago, founded my first own company, B2B trading company, bootstrapped. Really liked going back to to an empty warehouse and starting from the scratch. I, during the last 10 years, founded 15 own companies, all bootstrapped, all B2B, of course, not alone, many a times together with really cool, inspirational co-founders. And for like around 4 years, I'm doing B2B investments, very early stage, pre-seed and seed stage into SaaS companies. So I have a portfolio of around 40 SaaS companies I'm invested in, and they also help the teams mainly in go-to-market and sales. And the common denominator there is a lot of repetitive problems, a lack of network. So as you said, I decided to like build a kind of an ecosystem here in the German-speaking market, which we call ARRtist, ARRtist, which includes a conference once a year, a podcast 2 times a week, and we have a Slack community for SaaS founders and C-levels, free of charge, 600 people now, where we just foster exchange and try that people do not do the same mistakes which have been done before, and like talk about mistakes, talk about best practices, and accelerating their business growth.
And what would you say shaped you most in your career?
I think, to be very honest, everything. Yeah. So every experience I had in my life had a very big learning, either what I like or what I don't like. So talking about McKinsey, I got a lot of, I think, frameworks, a lot of logical thinking, high-level business contacts, yeah. But own decision-making was quite low, yeah. You're consulting and in a junior role, you're like preparation, you do presentations, you're preparing stuff. So I learned how to deal with people, but I also learned that like just consulting is not enough for me. I like to do decisions for myself. During my Zalando times, which started super early days, high speed, it was like really entrepreneurial, building stuff, new processes, internationalization, hyperscale, which I really liked, like the energy, freedom of decision, responsibility also for my mistakes and my decisions. And when the company became bigger, of course, it changed more to like a corporate management role. Yeah, like I had 450 people below me, and like the role changed from super entrepreneurial to a senior management position, where I recognize this is not like how I'd like to spend my time with. And then the decision again, going back to going to my first own company. And this was, I think, the best decision of my life. But a result of the previous things. And now I'm really happy and satisfied what I'm doing, building companies and investing.
And how do you approach building a bootstrap company? Because I think it's a different model than building a VC-backed or private equity-backed company, especially in the beginning.
Completely different approach. I mean, a lot of determinants which I think you should take into consideration. First of all is you need to ask yourself how you like to work, because having a VC on the board and deciding for a VC track means there is a third party on the table, and like if you go down the road, there are many more third parties on the table, and your share of ownership decreases round by round. Yeah, so it's a very different working model than to bootstrap, where capital is always rare. You really need to rethink every of your decisions twice, but you have full ownership of what you're doing. No need to report to anyone. You're depending on your own decisions, but also responsible for your own decisions. So I think it's a decision for yourself. And of course, there are a couple of more dimensions. For example, not every business model can be bootstrapped. Yeah, if I need to build a deep tech product first, no chance to bootstrap. Yeah, you need a certain amount of money to just build it and then monetize. So also, like the decision of the business model requires sometimes venture capital or not. So also depends like what you like to do.
And how do you approach building teams from scratch? Because I think this is what you did often now. So maybe you see some patterns. Yeah, maybe we can also say it's an B2B SaaS environment, for instance.
Yeah. It's a question of differentiation of good and bad teams or people team fit. I think there are a lot of factors signaling quality of a founder or quality of a founding team, and it's 2 dimensions. The first is like the single person, and then second thing is like combining people to a team. Because you have 3 very smart and great individual persons all being the same profile like a maniac, they together and the team will not work. So if you're composing a team, there's also different dimensions. How to staff teams? I think first of all, kind of a vertical knowledge or industry knowledge, or at least knowledge about a problem or pain point is super helpful. So did the founder have any touch points with the problem he'd likes to solve? So it makes a big difference than theoretically thinking about a problem solution or really having experienced this for yourself. I think the second thing is being curious. It's very important in sales, but also very important as a founder because it influences on many things, like contacting people, selecting advisors, want to get to know about best practices by reading or listening to podcasts, want to understand patterns on my customer side. So being curious is like an attitude which I think is super correlative with success as a early stage founder. Of course, work mentality. There's no question about this. These are like in the individual traits, and there are many more, but I think it's like 3 to name just a few here in the short period of time. And then if you set together individuals to a team, I think you really need to take a look from an investor's perspective or from founder's perspective, or someone a founding angel, like you can call it in different ways. It's like what kind of different roles and characters and skills do you need to solve a problem? So if you build a SaaS product, you probably need some technical knowledge. So you need a quite good dev and product profile. And you probably need a very good go-to-market sales commercial profile. So, and these 2 roles can be super different in terms of the people you want to put together. But so depending what you like to do, you need to really then put people together. And if it's a deep tech AI model, you probably need some AI professional having very deep knowledge about ML. So really depends on what kind of a problem you like to solve.
In case you like my show, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it.
Would you first invest into product development to build a relevant set of features or stability in the technology perspective? Or would you rather first invest in the go-to-market side, that you have enough demand and also maybe enough insights at some point to build the product depending on the insights you generate? Because you go out with a promise, but maybe you cannot deliver initially because you promise something that just will be built but is not built yet.
Yeah, I definitely would start on the market side because otherwise you will waste a lot of resources in terms of product development, not understanding the needs and pains of the customer. And starting on the market side doesn't mean you need to sell something by contract to the guy. It starts with like understanding your ICPs, your ideal customer profiles, and your buyer personas. And understanding means like you really get to know like what kind of problems do they have in general in the company, but also on a personal side. What motivates them? What happens if the pain is solved? What solutions do they right now use to solve the pain? Is there like how much would they pay for having this problem solved? Stuff like this. And you will extract this information only by doing really deep interviews with like a certain number of people. And it could be potential clients, industry experts, people from your network. And this will help you to really identify pains which have a high priority at your ICPs and buyer personas. And only if you understand this, from my point of view, you can build a product which then helps solving those pains. And this, of course, can be done then, for example, with like pilot partnerships. Yes, you're like, hey, we understood your needs, we understood your pain. We are now really going into product development. And would you mind like being a pilot customer or a pilot partner? So we don't charge you for the first 6 months, but we need your feedback on a weekly basis. This helps us for the product. And this is like phase 2. And then if phase 2 is done and you have a kind of an MVP, like a product which really solves the needs of their pilot customers, I think then it's a good time to go to the market and try to sell it for a certain price point, because then you also have value to deliver against the pain for your customers.
And I think also what is a bit different to a venture-based venture is that the whole planning cadence is maybe with less ambiguity and also with less more spikes if you bootstrap, right? Because it's a bit more continuous. But once when you raise a big amount of funding for a market entry and so on, and then you suddenly need to hire or build several orgs in parallel. This can be really, I don't know. I know that a lot of companies don't invest into planning at that early stage sometimes, or even at all. But I think especially if you're going venture backed, planning is key, that you distribute the resources kind of correctly or efficiently, because this is also what we saw now when the money and cash got a bit more expensive, that suddenly everybody had to start to plan. And then the goal was not to go for the next funding round, but to also at some kind get profitable. Yeah. So that's also a bit, I think, different. How do you see that?
Very different. Yeah. I mean, if you bootstrap, and you can also bootstrap starting building a tech product with a service in parallel. Yeah. So you have a service, you're consulting companies on their pains, you're getting some cash in, and with the cash financing product development. So when you bootstrap, I think the decision is always like, okay, where to spend the next €1. Yeah. So you get €1, and then it's like, okay, what do I do with it? It's the only euro I have. Yeah. If you do a venture case, you do a seed round, you have €2 million. And then there's a question, okay, how do I distribute this €2 million? And then this, of course, needs planning and hypothesis. Okay, where do I want to go with this next €2? Which milestone do I want to reach? What do I need to deliver to my investors and to the market to then get maybe a Series A funding of 10 million in the next round? Yeah, so there are certain milestones. Let's say, easiest example, revenue, ARR. Okay, to reach this revenue, how many clients do I need to reach this, to acquire these clients? How many FTE on the sales side do I need? How many marketing budget do I need if I know my customer acquisition costs are X? So if you have a venture case, planning is key, yeah, and understanding your metrics quite fast and really distributing the money the right way. Yeah, it's a very different game.
And how would you choose a co-founder? Because you had now, I think, plus 15 companies you founded by yourself. So you have a lot of co-founders, I guess.
Yes, in a couple of companies, I have the same co-founders, because if you've chosen the right ones, it's super fun in life to do the next venture together again. But yes, very different co-founders. And I mentioned like 4 companies are closed down again. One also because the cap table and the co-founder consistency didn't work out. So to be honest, it's a very opportunistic process. I don't have a venture studio approach, like acquiring talent by a very quantitative way. It's usually gut feeling and a common track record in previous projects. Yeah. So the co-founder of my first company, Ole, which I highly appreciate and value a lot, he was working in one of my teams at Zalando. So we had a lot of touch points. We get to know each other. We understood each other in a personal way. We also had some conflicts. So we had a lot of situations where we experienced how it could be working together. And on the other side, I got a good understanding of like the skills of the other person and the industry knowledge and how they work. And this, of course, helped a lot to say like, hey, we can imagine working together on an venture. So my recommendation choosing a co-founder is definitely trying to create as many touch points, situations, and also conflicts as possible before, because you only will get a good feeling of this relationship and this connection in tough situations. Yeah, if the grass is green, everybody plays football quite good. Yeah, it becomes more complicated if the court looks like shit. Yeah, and then it's a question, how can you play?
Yes. And do you have also some learnings of maybe a good experience and a learning experience in choosing a co-founder?
A bit what I mentioned, yeah. I think this one case...
So maybe with examples or so, this would be super interesting.
Maybe I didn't get the question right, Thomas. Can you elaborate a bit more what you're meaning?
Yeah, if you maybe have some examples where you could say, hey, in that example, we had a very, for me, this was a very positive experience and the right decision. And there is maybe another example where you see, it did not work out well. So it's maybe a learning experience.
Yeah, I can give an example about a signal. Yeah. So if you have different opinions and at a certain case, or maybe make it even more clear, there is a situation where it's quite clear that someone is right and someone is wrong, like just like a quantitative case. And the person who is wrong, like how will she react when she definitely recognizes that she's wrong? Yeah, so it's a very clear case. It's quite clear person A was wrong, or person B was wrong. And then if someone reacts in a very self-reflected way, trying to analyze why she was wrong, committing that she was wrong, trying to get learnings out of it, how to do better next time, is a very good signal of person to work with. The other cases, and I probably did the same. I did the same in my early career. Is like looking for reasons why someone else or certain market economics made me do the wrong decision. So not my ownership, not my fault. Someone else is responsible. So this is like a very red light or red flag signal in a personal relationship. If this happens, it's a red flag. Yeah. So because then it becomes super difficult with clients. Someone is not self-reflected. Someone is like, like it's not a good attitude.
Yes. I totally agree. But on the other hand, it can be. So I think if there is a really complementary team, also 2, 3, or with 4 people, I never saw it working out. With 3, I think it's also difficult. I think with 2, it can be super simple from the constellation. Because there are not so many interdependencies, and it's also quite straightforward on how to split shares, for instance, especially if if 2 people start at the same time and have similar scope, right? Then I think it really is a no-brainer sometimes. But also, did you start a company just by yourself as well?
No.
And why not?
Because I like people. I like spending my life with inspirational minds around me. I'd like to interact. I learn from other people, independent if they're 10, 20 years younger than me. I'm not a lone wolf. I like social interactions. So, and I think it's also like a correcting momentum, to be very honest. Yeah. So everyone does mistakes. So it's highly recommendable that you're not going on a journey for yourself, because in certain moments, especially I'm a very risk-affine guy. Yeah. So it's like I would always go for the risk. Like I would say, yeah, let's try it. Let's do it. And especially, for example, with Ole, he just sometimes slows me a bit down in a good way. It's like, hey, Julius, let's rethink this again. Do you really think we should do this? What is the opportunity? What are the costs here? And then it makes me rethinking my approach and my decision to try it out. And in many situations, it's a very good thing. Yeah. And then we just like skip decisions and don't do it. And the other way around, it's working the same. Like Ole maybe is a bit more the conservative guy, and maybe in some situations like too conservative to really achieve an output. And in this situation, then I start argumenting with, okay, this is the opportunity. We should at least try. Let's take a little bit of budget, make an experiment, measure, and if we see there is traction, then we go into it. And then, like this power play, I think, drives very good decisions and is a very correcting momentum.
Yeah, it's interesting thought and theory. I agree with you on that. And how did you then start building this ecosystem of artists? That's, I think, also tough to achieve in the beginning. It's a lot of effort you need to put in, and maybe at some point it's then self-sustaining. But you also need to invest into it, I guess. So how does this work to build an ecosystem of communities?
Yeah, I mean, I need to say I'm doing this also for the first time, so it's a big learning process for me. So the journey started with I'm helping my portfolio companies, and what I'm doing in my own companies is go to market and sales. And my initial idea was to build a fresh sales conference, because tech sales is way different than sales for Volkswagen, stuff like this. And so this was the initial idea, and talked to a couple of people about the idea, like I said before, doing interviews, and hey, is there a pain, blah, blah, blah. And then there was the feedback like, yeah, sales is a topic, but we also have a problem with fundraising, and we also would like to exchange about marketing and about product. So we said, okay, instead of building a sales conference, and this was the first idea for like all levels of sales, we just said, okay, we're building a SaaS conference with all functions, but only with a very boutique approach, just for high-level decision makers, founders, and C-level. And they say, okay, how to bring these people together in the best way? It's like, okay, a digital format. And I was like, digital format difficult for exchange and a Zoom meeting with people. So there was a decision to do a physical meetup. And I was like, okay, the physical meetup, probably we should build a small conference. And said, okay, let's having the idea. And then I was like, okay, I'm not the guy who building a conference for myself for 500 people, not the expert, like not the knowledge. By coincidence, my current two co-founders, which are long-term friends, and I was at the first angel in their business, in their last company, they were running a Tough Mudder clone called Xletics. So they did events for 15,000 people 20 times a year, like on the biggest scale. So they knew event, were open for something new. I knew SaaS, no idea about event. We just met together. I pitched the idea. They said like, okay, let's do this on a half-week basis. And then we had like a good team for the pain and for the solution. The solution was a conference. And then we just did outreach. Yeah. So I just said, okay, what's the go-to-market? The go-to-market is probably to have an interesting conference and a summit. We need a good program and a good approach in terms of people can connect. If we have a good program and good speakers, people will buy tickets to come. And if we have people and speakers, then sponsors will probably also join, because then there is an interesting target group for partners. And this is what we did. I just did outreach to 50, 60 people. Said, okay, this is the idea. We're looking for interesting speakers for the first year. And 10 people, I called 9, said, it's a brilliant idea. I'd like to contribute. I'd like to join. So we built the program. We sold the first tickets. We acquired the first sponsors. And I said, okay, how else besides a small conference can we contribute to the ecosystem and foster exchange between people? So, okay, let's do a podcast. Because we can all year long can take the knowledge of founders and investors, making it accessible in a podcast, and push it to the whole ecosystem for free. So we did the podcast, which worked out pretty well. And said, okay, what else can we do? I said, let's build a format where people can exchange during the whole year in terms of a Slack community. So we built a Slack community, 700 SaaS founders now inside, no investors, no partners, where they exchange about their problems all year around. So this is like how I approach it now. Like, what other elements can help making the ecosystem of SaaS in Germany and German-speaking markets better step by step? And we're now building more and more modules on empowering the ecosystem here. Long monologue. I hope that was clear.
Yes, very clear. And I think a very entrepreneurial approach on how you should validate ideas. But I think the validation itself does not do the work, right? You also need to put in the work and get to the next step all the time, and then come with new findings, with new ideas, and see how it's perceived, and make something out of it. Because I think also what is super important, that you sold tickets, and that you also actually made money from it. Yeah, because ultimately at some point there needs to be a flow of cash.
In case you have any feedback or anything you want to share with me, please send me an email on thomas@peoplewise.com or hit me up on LinkedIn. And in case you really enjoy the show, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it.
I mean, building a conference for last year was 400 people, full day, location, food, drinks, all included, just costs like a 6-digit number of money. Yeah. So, and if you don't want to pay this for yourself, it needs to be financed. Yeah. So you need to sell ticket and some sponsor packs just to make a break-even event for this like kind of small number of people. And yeah, I mean, like last year, acquiring founders, I I would say I definitely did 200, 250, 30 minutes calls with SaaS founders to pitch the idea and tell them about our vision of building an ecosystem and getting them to the first summit. I mean, it was an idea on paper. You're selling a product which haven't been there. So I minimum did 250 calls last year with founders.
Yeah, I can see the entrepreneurial spirit.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, as I said, it's like ideation, then doing interviews, validation of the idea, and then like, of course, like building copy and the go-to-market strategy to push the idea. And as you say, and in this case, it's like first acquiring participants in terms of tickets and then acquiring partners in terms of sponsoring. So it's a super entrepreneurial. I mean, it's a super clear go-to-market case, which just needs a lot of effort to do it. It will not happen for itself.
And what's the goal for the next years with ARRtist?
I mean, as said, I'm a very opportunistic guy. Yeah, like I do stuff as long as I have fun with it. I think the beauty of ARRtist is really like bringing super smart minds together. Yeah, like entrepreneurs, C-level executives, investors, and I think, or to my mind, this is like the biggest value of this ecosystem and platform. Talking to interesting, smart people and learning every day. So. To make, I mean, there are a couple of things to make it bigger. It would be like opening the platform for non-executives, like AAEs, SDRs. I think it's not a good idea because then the quality of the product, the conference will go down. I think there are a couple of cool more ideas how to empower the ecosystem and more exchange. So we'll probably do a couple of more events all year around. We are thinking about some formats for other target groups. So next year in April, we have launched the ARRtist Circus, which is a festival for sales teams and success teams, customer success teams. Very, very colorful, very enabling. I think, let's see if this works, but very cool indications of product market fit. So if you're in sales or customer success, take a look at arrtist-circus.com. And but where will this go? I mean, an idea could be to build a fund on top of the ecosystem, because you have access to early stage startups and capital on the other side. The idea could be taking the learnings, building a unicorn SaaS company with all the knowledge and learnings and contacts, with good access to investors and good access to other founders. The idea could be handing the conference over to a team and like doing something completely new, like non-ARRtist stuff. So ask me next year, ask me in second years. I will have different views on this. Right now, I'm really enjoying the process and the journey of doing it without a 5 years vision, to be honest, Thomas. Yeah.
Cool. Julius, what is a guest that I don't know, what I should interview next?
A guest you should interview next? What do you want to learn?
So I think when we dive a bit more into the topic of SaaS and how to build certain maybe orgs, teams, structures in a certain way, that's interesting, I guess.
I think I would recommend Robin Sudermann, founder and CEO of Talents Connect. They have a super interesting org structure. They work in squads in their org. Super, super interesting thing. I can recommend an episode I did with him at ARRtist on Air exactly about this topic. So if you want to jump in and listen, it's very innovative thinking in terms of how to structure an organization. And he's also like a very cool guy, super empathic, super smart. So definitely a good guest for your show, Thomas.
I will. I think I'm already in touch with him on 2 conferences. I met him. So we planned this already. So that's a good hint again. So I will do so.
Absolutely. Send my wishes, please. Yeah.
I will. Thanks, Julius, for your time and the great insights.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for the invite, and all the best going forward with your podcast and your business, of course, Thomas. Yeah, building an agency, a service model, and a SaaS companies and investing. I see some parallels. Yeah.
Yes. Thanks.
Thank you.